Chapter 1. 123, 7th year, Darkness Falls. Friday, November 4th, 1977, 2 a.m. in Gryffindor Tower.
I think there's something to the colour-changing idea.
James slurred, using his goblet to gesture wildly. Thankfully it was empty and didn't spill.
Nah, it's too obvious.
Sirius shook his head, just as drunk as James, but handling himself remarkably well for once.
Besides,
Lily yawned from where she sat on the floor, head nodding against James's knee.
what do we change? Their robes?
Their whole dormitory.
Mary suggested, the only one still dancing, winding her arms slowly over her head and rolling her hips to a sultry Nina Simone track.
Complete makeover. Bright pink.
Why pink, though?
Sirius said.
Some people might like pink.
Ha! On your own, Black.
Marlene pulled a face at him. She was sitting upside down in an armchair, her legs dangling over the back, long blonde hair touching the floor. Her eyes were fixed on Mary moving in front of the fireplace. They were the last few standing after Sirius's 18th birthday party, which had been as uproarious and over the top as usual. The only non-7th year remaining was Christopher, who looked like he was struggling to keep his eyes open, but held on valiantly, taking notes for the Slytherin prank which they were currently brainstorming.
How would we even get hold of their robes, though?
Peter asked, fiddling with the label on his beer bottle.
We had the same problem in first year, remember? With the itching powder.
Oh yeah,
James nodded.
that's right. It was easier to sneak into their common room than it was to work out how the house elves organised the laundry.
How did you sneak in?
Marlene asked, frowning.
You can't have perfected an invisibility spell by the age of 11.
Ask us no questions, and we shall tell you no lies, McKinnon.
Sirius winked at her. He was watching Mary dance too, his eyes shining with intoxication.
Anyway, we've decided not to do it.
You decided.
James corrected.
It's my birthday.
Not anymore, it isn't.
Peter threw a cushion at him. Sirius threw one back, then James launched another, and soon enough they were all drunkenly flinging cushions back and forth, giggling dopily.
Right.
Marlene laughed, after deflecting a big round velvet one.
I'm off to bed.
She placed her hands on the carpet and flipped forward neatly. She brushed her jeans as she got up, a bit wobbly on her feet, then headed for the girls' dorm.
No.
Mary grabbed her around the waist.
Don't go, Miles. Dance with me.
Marlene laughed lightly, but Remus caught an odd flash of annoyance in Marlene's usually placid face as she gently unwound herself from Mary and backed away.
I'm sure one of the boys will oblige.
She said, shortly.
Night, all.
Night, they chorused back. Remus vaguely wondered what was going on between the two best friends, but he was too drunk and sleepy to dwell on it very long.
I think I'll go up too.
Christopher was already on his feet, as though he had been waiting for someone else to admit defeat so that he wasn't the first.
Don't decide anything without me, though.
I really don't think anyone's going to formulate a plan tonight.
Lily yawned again.
See you tomorrow, Chris.
Night.
The younger boy waved at all of them in his awkward, cheery way.
If no one wants to dance with me.
Mary sighed, moving to turn off the record player.
I suppose I'd better get in some beauty sleep too.
And me.
Peter got up, tossing back the dregs of his drink.
And me?
Lily was getting up when James pulled her into his lap, hugging her close.
Don't go yet.
She curled into him, sleepily, and they became one unit, cocooned in the big leather armchair. Remus blinked at them blearily and marvelled once again that they had all teased James for years about his certainty that he and Lily were made for each other. Funny how things work out.
Absolutely obscene.
Sirius tutted, pulling a face at the couple.
Well, if that's the way this party's going, I'll follow Wormtail's example. Coming, Mooney?
Yep. Remus got up off the sofa they had been sharing, maintaining a polite and inconspicuous distance, as they had done all evening. They followed Peter up and found he was locked in the bathroom, noisily brushing his teeth and gargling. Remus was exhausted and sat on the end of his bed to wait, yawning and rubbing his eyes. Good birthday, he asked Sirius.
Brilliant.
Sirius grinned back. Good.
If we wait until Pete's asleep.
Bad idea, Padfoot, especially if James isn't back yet. Anyway, I'm knackered. He yawned again, as if to prove his point. Another time. This was a bit of a white lie. After too many near misses, Remus had been trying to limit the amount of time he spent in Sirius's bed. It seemed so sneaky and dishonest.
Another time.
Sirius sighed.
It's my birthday, and I've barely seen you.
I've been here all day.
This was true, of course, but it was true of all of the Marauders and Lily.
You know what I mean.
Sirius shook his head impatiently. Remus did know, but he didn't have a response that would please Sirius. This same issue kept coming up, and, quite frankly, Remus was getting sick of it, especially as there was no possible way to solve it until Sirius finally made his mind up. Tired, and getting more irritable by the second, Remus got up and began to change quickly into his pyjamas. Sirius stood up and came over to him, crossing the beam of moonlight streaking the ancient floorboards.
You're not avoiding me, are you?
He asked.
No.
Remus muttered.
I'm just busy. I've got a lot on.
If he'd said it once, he'd said it 1,000 times.
Okay.
Sirius said slowly.
Just, Lily and James are busy too, but they still seem to find time to...
We're not Lily and James, though, are we?
Remus raised his eyebrow, honestly. Sirius looked hurt.
No, but...
That was your decision,
Remus said, buttoning his nightshirt.
What was it you said? Not to scream it from the rooftops. I thought you wanted it this way.
Sirius looked lost. Remus rolled his eyes, exasperated.
You said you needed time. I'm giving it to you, but you can't keep whinging about it.
Sirius withdrew. Remus knew he had won, but there was no joy in the victory. Fortunately, Peter chose that moment to exit the bathroom. He made a beeline for his bed, head down, waving a lazy hand at them.
Night, lads.
Night, Pete.
Night, Pete.
They both replied, cheerily. Saturday, November 26th, 1977. They could get over little tiffs like that in those days. They could wake up the next morning and both be ready to wipe the slate clean, at least until the next time. In the end, their desire for each other, their affection, and most of all their friendship, seemed strong enough to win out over any other problems. It was a state of being that Remus would later learn they were taking very much for granted. On top of this, there was a war on, which may have explained quite a bit. Everyone was slightly melodramatic, and nerves were raw all round. The headlines weren't helping. Ministry raids, 3 houses in search for forbidden artifacts, 3rd vampire attack in 2 weeks, Minister Jenkins steps down in wake of disappearances, werewolf registry, dangerously undermanaged ministry insiders reveal. And that was only this week's papers. Something was going on with the Slytherins too, more than the usual classist nonsense. Over the summer, or perhaps before that, a new hierarchy seemed to have formed, creating obvious divisions in the most controversial Hogwarts house. Regulus Black had always carried a certain amount of clout, of course. The heir to the most noble, exclusive and wealthy pureblood family had been popular amongst his ambitious peer group since his very first day of school. In turn, he had surrounded himself with a faction of pureblood students who seemed to grow nastier by the year. Except for Barty Crouch Jr., perhaps, who had been incredibly nasty even as a little boy. Now, in his 6th year, Regulus did nothing to dispel the rumours that he was not only a Death Eater, but in regular communication with Lord Voldemort himself. In fact, Regulus seemed to rather enjoy his increased powers, which, according to Christopher, who shared several classes with him, even some of the teachers were observing. He held himself differently. He walked with his back straight, his chin raised, a permanent smirk affixed to his pale face. Remus could hardly recognise the nervous, troubled boy that Sirius had once called Reggie. Regulus was not stupid. He had never once had a detention in all his time at school, and was as bright as his older brother when it came to his lessons. Still, unpleasant things seemed to happen to everyone around him. A 4th-year Hufflepuff, who, rumour had it, knocked over an inkwell on Regulus's desk while he was studying in the library, was found 2 days later, locked in a broom cupboard in the dungeons, white as a sheet and completely mute. He had been sent home to recover, and had not been seen since. The Ravenclaw Quidditch team practice overran by half an hour one afternoon due to a mix-up with the rota, meaning that the Slytherin team's practice had to be pushed back to the following day. The next time the Ravenclaws met, they had to cancel their practice altogether, as well as postpone an upcoming match with Gryffindor, because nobody was able to touch their brooms without receiving hundreds of tiny splinters, which could only be removed by Madame Pomfrey, and the words, "Mudbloods get out," had been magically carved into the chalkboard in the Muggle Studies classroom, so that the lessons had to be moved while the teachers investigated. Of course, no one ever questioned Regulus, and as there were no witnesses to any of these crimes, nothing could be done. Everybody knew, though, everybody with any stake in the war. The increasing cruelty and prevalence of such attacks had thrown a shadow over the castle which every student felt now, if they hadn't in previous years. It might have been the reason that so many people wanted to help the Marauders plan their next prank, though that also had a lot to do with Christopher.
Did you tell everyone?
Remus sighed, exasperated, as a third year scuttled out of the study room, flushed and grinning after offering his services to the cause. I blow, stuff up all the time in potions, he had explained, without a trace of irony. Remus had assured him that James and Sirius would be thrilled to hear it.
I just mentioned it to a friend,
Christopher replied sheepishly.
You know, a lot of people have got it in for Slytherin, and it's always a good idea to get a wide range of experience.
The Marauders do not outsource their pranks.
Remus sniffed, haughtily, as they made their way back towards the tower.
It's not outsourcing,
Christopher countered.
It's, collaboration.
We don't collaborate either.
Why not? Isn't that what we're supposed to be fighting for? Inclusion?
Inclusion, yes. Equality, yes. Prank planning cooperatives, no.
Christopher snorted with laughter. Remus smiled. Christopher had an awkward braying laugh, like a donkey. It was pretty glorious to witness.
So,
Christopher wheezed, catching his breath and wiping his eyes.
What are your Christmas plans? Staying here again?
Maybe. Or going to the Potters. All hangs on whether or not James is going to spend it with Lily's family.
Oh, Merlin, don't.
Christopher pulled a face.
I think I preferred it when they hated each other. Prefect meetings are so boring now. They spend the whole time talking each other up. Enough to give you toothache.
I think it's nice,
Remus said.
James has been bonkers about Lily since second year. If he can finally tell her how amazing she is instead of telling us, then all the better.
Yeah, I suppose you're right. We should all be so lucky.
Christopher sighed. They were quiet for a bit after that, just walking together. As they turned the next corner, Remus realised that they hadn't passed anyone in a while. Fair enough, it was a Saturday, but it wasn't a Hogsmeade weekend, and the weather was too poor for anyone to be outside. Finally, a first year came hurrying towards them through an archway which led to the east wing. Her eyes were big and frightened. She looked up at the two older boys.
Ooh!
She squeaked.
Don't go down there, it's horrid.
And ran past them, presumably back to her house. Chris and Remus looked at each other. Chris licked his lips, then squared his shoulders slightly, setting his mouth.
I am a prefect, so I'd better...
I'll come with you.
Remus patted his shoulder. Christopher nodded, looking very relieved. Remus wished James was there, or Sirius. They walked side by side through the archway and found themselves enveloped in total darkness. It was the middle of the afternoon, and Remus knew there were usually windows on this corridor, and even at night it was never this dark. Something was very wrong.
Lumos.
Lumos.
They both whispered, lighting their wand tips and holding them up, casting beams of white light across the grey flagstones, the blood-red tapestries, the glinting suits of armour. It seemed empty. Christopher took a brave step ahead of Remus, clearing his throat.
Hello? Is anyone here?
He called. No response. Utter silence. Christopher turned around to look at Remus, squinting and raising an arm to his eyes against the brightness of Remus's wand light.
Perhaps you ought to go for a teacher.
Come back with me then,
Remus said. There was a noise, a nasty, crawling, slimy squelch just ahead of Christopher. They both whipped around and aimed their lights at it, but found only an empty corner. Christopher's heart was pounding hard. He reeked of adrenaline and terror.
There's something in here,
he whispered, fearfully.
Come on.
Remus said.
Let's go and get help.
I think it's over there.
Christopher walked forward again, and Remus lost sight of him and had to go by smell. This was particularly disconcerting. Remus had never met a darkness so black that he could not see through it.
Chris.
He reached forward, casting his light about.
I found it. No. Oh, Merlin, no, no.
Christopher began to scream, somewhere further up the hall. Without thinking, Remus bolted forward, following the terrible wails.
Chris!
He almost tripped over him. Christopher was curled up on the floor, hands covering his head, rocking and sobbing.
What?
Remus asked, trembling now as Christopher pointed at it. Remus used his wand to follow his friend's shaking arm, finally throwing light on their tormentor. Remus almost screamed too. A corpse, a horrible, rotting, shambling corpse was stumbling towards them through the velvet blackness. It slumped forward with a heavy stoop, reaching for Christopher. The eyes were intact, yellow and red, both vacant and ravenous. It still had most of its skin, a grotesque palette of mottled grey and deep bruise purple. It moaned, a ghastly rattling sound through crooked yellow teeth. Remus raised his wand and stood in front of Chris. He was about to fire a knockback jinx at it, the only thing he could think of at short notice, when it fixed its hungry eyes on him. In a second, it vanished. Remus blinked, gasping, and suddenly the hallway was filled with a pale, milky light as a full moon rose before him. The scream died in his throat, and he was gripped with horror. How was it possible? The moon was not due for a week. He had to run. He had to get away from Christopher, but wait a minute.
I know what you are.
Remus's terror turned to elation as he raised his wand once more and shouted out confidently,
Riddikulus.
The moon began to expand and transform once more, this time into a huge white beach ball, which began to bounce and spring off the walls before bursting into a cloud of soapy bubbles. Remus laughed as loudly as he could under the circumstances, and the Boggart retreated. He took his chance and grabbed Christopher, still curled up, eyes closed tight, under the arm, dragging him back towards the archway as fast as he could. They came out the other side, gasping and blinking hard in the light. Christopher was gripping Remus's robes tightly, his breathing heavy, face ashen.
Fuck.
Remus murmured, feeling pretty shaky himself.
That was a Boggart?
Christopher stuttered.
Yeah, it was. I've never seen one before, have you?
Chris shook his head. Remus patted his hands, willing him to let go.
Hey, it's okay. It wasn't real, remember? Come on, we have to tell someone before anyone else runs into it.
I'll go,
Chris said, getting some of his courage back.
I'll go now. Are you okay to wait here, in case someone comes?
Of course.
Remus nodded.
No one's getting past me.
He grinned, trying to make light of it, but Christopher was still too shaken. He nodded grimly and set off, still gripping his wand. Alone, Remus reached into his deep robe pockets and pulled out the Marauder's map. He'd had it on him for a while now, out of concern that James might take a look one day and wonder which he and Sirius were sharing the bathroom so often.
I solemnly swear that I am up to no good,
he whispered, tapping the parchment. The map immediately sprang to life, ink spreading like vines across the page. Remus held it up to his eyes and frantically searched for the corridor with the Boggart. There it was, and there he was, Remus Lupin, clearly marked out at one end. He followed the length of it with his finger. It was completely empty. Apparently Boggarts did not show up. Not enough substance, maybe. He reached the end. There was a second archway on the other side, he remembered, covered by a tapestry. 3 people were waiting there, quite still. Barty Crouch Jr., Garrick Mulciber, and... Remus's stomach sank, though he was not all that surprised. Here it was, proof in black and white, Regulus Black.